Operation High Jump. Operation High Jump was supposed to be routine. That's what they said anyway. A mapping mission to Antarctica in 1946, led by Admiral Richard Byrd, established some bases, test equipment in polar conditions, standard military stuff. Except nothing about Operation High Jump was standard. They sent 4,700 men, 13 ships, 33 aircraft. That's not a mapping mission. That's an invasion force. You don't mobilize that kind of operation just to draw some lines on a map. But that was the official story, and everyone stuck to it. Until Byrd's personal diary surfaced decades after his death. Then things got interesting. On February 19, 1947, Byrd wrote about flying over the Antarctic interior when his instruments started going haywire. They were near this valley, ice-free valley, which shouldn't exist in Antarctica. Everything's supposed to be frozen solid. But as they descended, his team found warm areas, places where the ice had melted away to reveal stone structures underneath. Ancient stone structures, built with precision that exceeded anything modern construction could achieve. These weren't primitive shelters or simple formations. They were sophisticated buildings, the kind of architecture that incorporated engineering principles that known civilizations wouldn't develop for millennia. The stonework showed evidence of advanced cutting techniques. Massive blocks fitted together so perfectly they didn't need mortar. Just precision. The kind of precision that requires technology we assume didn't exist back then. But here it was, buried under Antarctic ice. Most extraordinary were the technological artifacts they found inside these buildings. Metallic objects with properties that contemporary science couldn't identify. Some of the devices appeared to still be generating heat. That's what was keeping the area ice-free despite being in one of the coldest places on Earth. Heat sources that had been running for who knows how long. Without fuel. Without any visible power source. Just functioning. Byrd's team documented extensive hieroglyphic inscriptions, symbols that didn't match any known ancient writing system. The symbols appeared to describe advanced scientific concepts, astronomical calculations, mathematical formulas. What looked like technical diagrams for machinery nobody could identify. When Byrd reported these findings to military authorities, the response was immediate. Cease exploration. Return to base. The warm valley was declared off-limits. All documentation classified under the highest levels of national security. Not just classified. The highest levels. Upon returning to the United States, Byrd faced extensive debriefing sessions. He was ordered never to discuss his Antarctic discoveries publicly. His subsequent interviews focused exclusively on standard polar exploration. Weather conditions, ice formations, nothing about ancient cities or impossible technologies. The cover-up went deeper than just silence. Photographs taken during the expedition disappeared from official archives. Team members were transferred to different assignments, prohibited from communicating with each other. Byrd's original reports were classified so thoroughly that their existence was officially denied. Modern satellite imagery shows unusual geometric patterns beneath the ice in areas corresponding to Byrd's described locations. But these regions remain restricted. International treaties prevent independent investigation of the anomalous structures. Scientific access only, and even that's tightly controlled. The Antarctic discovery represents proof that advanced civilization existed in polar regions long before accepted human history. But this knowledge has been systematically suppressed. Can't have people questioning established archaeological timelines. Can't let revolutionary discoveries upset the accepted narrative about how human civilization developed. The Lost City of Z. In 1925, British explorer Colonel Percy Fawcett launched what would be his final expedition into the Amazon rainforest. He was searching for a lost civilization he called Z. Fawcett had spent years researching Portuguese colonial documents. These old records described encounters with highly organized indigenous cities, paved roads, multi-story buildings, populations numbering in the hundreds of thousands. This contradicted everything accepted about Amazon civilizations. The established belief was that indigenous populations were small primitive tribes. Nothing sophisticated, nothing advanced. But Fawcett's research suggested otherwise. His expedition team included his son Jack and photographer Raleigh Ramel. They documented their journey with detailed maps, photographs, and notes. These were transmitted back to England through indigenous messenger networks, regular communication, detailed reports. Everything was going according to plan, until the communication suddenly stopped. Their final dispatches described discovering massive earthwork formations. These created sophisticated agricultural systems capable of supporting large populations in challenging rainforest environments. The agricultural techniques included soil enhancement methods, what we now call terra preta deposits. Incredibly fertile black soil still found throughout the Amazon, but the most extraordinary reports came from metallurgical workshops they'd discovered. These had produced alloys unknown to contemporary science. Fawcett described finding tools and decorative objects made from metals that were lighter than aluminum, but stronger than steel. This suggested advanced understanding of material science that shouldn't have existed. The team documented architectural remains showing evidence of urban planning with advanced engineering principles, roads constructed with drainage systems, buildings designed to withstand floods and earthquakes, cities with sophisticated water management that channeled seasonal flooding for agricultural benefit. Not primitive, sophisticated. When Fawcett's communications ceased, the Royal Geographical Society launched multiple rescue expeditions. Searchers found no trace of the missing team, but they did discover indigenous populations who possessed detailed knowledge of the lost cities. These populations claimed the explorers had been taken by the Guardians, taken to prevent their secrets from reaching the outside world. Decades later, investigation revealed that Fawcett's discoveries had been monitored by intelligence agencies. Britain, Brazil, and the United States all had people watching. The advanced Amazon civilizations represented evidence that could challenge colonial justifications. Can't claim you're conquering primitive peoples if those peoples had achieved sophisticated development. Modern archaeological research has confirmed many of Fawcett's theories about advanced Amazon civilizations, but investigations into his specific discoveries are blocked. Government claims that the areas contain sensitive indigenous territories, cannot be accessed by outside researchers. Satellite imagery shows geometric patterns in remote Amazon regions. These correspond to Fawcett's described locations, roadway networks, urban formations that suggest sophisticated city planning. But these areas remain restricted to unauthorized research. The Amazon vanishing represents systematic suppression of evidence, proving that indigenous civilizations achieved advanced development. Development that challenges established narratives about technological progress, inconvenient truths about the sophistication of cultures that were systematically destroyed by colonial expansion. Real quick, if you're learning something new from this video, be sure to like and drop a comment with your favorite. It helps us to spread this info to those who need to hear it most. Also, subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss what we reveal next. Trust me, there's a whole lot more hidden. Now back to it. The Tibetan manuscript hunt. In 1924, Russian explorer Nicholas Roerich led an expedition across Central Asia and Tibet. Official purpose was cultural and artistic research. That's what they told everyone. But classified Soviet documents reveal the true mission. They were locating specific manuscripts that Buddhist monks claimed contained knowledge from the stars. Advanced scientific information supposedly preserved from prehistoric civilizations. The team discovered hidden libraries in remote Tibetan monasteries. Thousands of manuscripts written in unknown scripts. When scholarly monks translated the texts, they revealed sophisticated understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and physics. Knowledge that exceeded contemporary scientific understanding by centuries. Most extraordinary were manuscripts containing detailed technical diagrams. These showed mechanical devices that operated according to principles unknown to modern engineering. Machines for generating energy, controlling weather patterns, achieving flight using methods that didn't require combustion or conventional propulsion. The texts included precise astronomical calculations, positions of celestial bodies that couldn't be observed without advanced instruments. This suggested ancient astronomers had access to technology equivalent to modern telescopes. The calculations extended thousands of years into the future with mathematical precision. Roerich documented prophecies describing future inventions, devices for long-distance communication, mechanical transportation, energy generation that wouldn't occur until decades later. The accuracy of these predictions suggested something strange, like maybe access to information about technological development timelines. information that shouldn't have been available in the 1920s. When Soviet authorities learned of the manuscript contents, they ordered immediate confiscation of all materials. Everything. The expedition's findings were classified under the highest levels of state secrecy. Team members were prohibited from discussing their discoveries. They were placed under surveillance that continued for the rest of their lives. Not temporary surveillance either. Permanent monitoring until they died. The most valuable manuscripts were transferred to classified research facilities. Soviet scientists attempted to decode the advanced technical information for military applications. But here's the problem. Many of the described technologies required materials and manufacturing techniques that wouldn't be developed for decades. They couldn't actually build what the manuscripts described. Attempts by international scholars to access Rorik's Tibetan manuscripts have been consistently blocked. Russian authorities claim the materials contain culturally sensitive religious information. Cannot be shared with foreign researchers. That's the official explanation anyway. Recent analysis of Rorik's surviving notes reveals references to manuscripts describing global catastrophes that occur in predictable cycles, advanced civilizations that achieve space travel, technologies that could provide unlimited energy through methods that modern physics considers impossible. The Tibet manuscript hunt represents systematic suppression of ancient scientific knowledge that could revolutionize human understanding of technology and history. Evidence that advanced civilizations existed in prehistoric times with capabilities exceeding contemporary development. The Gobi Desert Secret. In 1922, American paleontologist Roy Chapman Andrews led expeditions into the Gobi. Official purpose was hunting for fossil evidence of early human evolution. That's what they told everyone. Dinosaur fossils, ancient human ancestors, standard paleontology stuff. But team geologist Walter Granger documented finding something else entirely. Metallic artifacts embedded in rock formations dating back millions of years. An impossibility according to accepted archaeological timelines. Can't have worked metal millions of years ago. Humans didn't exist yet. But there the artifacts were. The artifacts included precision-machined metal objects, evidence of advanced manufacturing techniques, geometric forms that suggested sophisticated mathematical understanding, devices that appeared to be scientific instruments for astronomical observation. Not primitive tools, not ceremonial objects, actual precision instruments. Most extraordinary was the discovery of what appeared to be a preserved ancient laboratory. Equipment for metallurgy, chemical analysis, astronomical calculation. The facility was carved into solid rock and showed evidence of advanced engineering. Tools and techniques unknown to prehistoric populations. Or what we thought were prehistoric populations anyway. Carbon dating of organic materials found with the artifacts suggested they were millions of years old. Millions. But the sophistication of the metalwork indicated technological capabilities that exceeded modern manufacturing. Modern manufacturing techniques. The contradiction challenged fundamental assumptions about the development of human civilization. How do you have advanced metallurgy millions of years before humans? You don't. Unless everything we think we know is wrong. Andrews documented finding extensive libraries carved into rock walls, symbols and mathematical formulas that demonstrated advanced understanding of physics, astronomy, and engineering. The information included detailed star charts, celestial positions from millions of years ago, with accuracy that required sophisticated instruments. When expedition findings were reported to American and Mongolian authorities, officials from multiple countries converged on the site. Immediately, they classified all discoveries. Team members were ordered to sign extensive non-disclosure agreements, prohibited from publishing their findings. The ancient Gobi site was sealed and declared off-limits to further archaeological investigation. Official reports attributed the expedition's early termination to political instability. That was the excuse. Political problems in Mongolia. But that wasn't the real reason for ending the research. The real reason was what they'd found. Subsequent attempts by international archaeological teams to investigate the Gobi discoveries have been blocked. Mongolian authorities claim the areas contain culturally sensitive sites, cannot be accessed by foreign researchers. Recent satellite imagery shows unusual geometric formations in remote Gobi regions. These correspond to Andrew's described locations, carved structures, roadway patterns that suggest sophisticated urban planning from prehistoric periods. But those areas remain restricted. The Gobi Secret represents evidence that advanced technological civilization existed millions of years ago, challenging every accepted theory about human development, suggesting that sophisticated knowledge has been repeatedly achieved and lost throughout Earth's history. The Arctic anomaly. In 1913, Canadian explorer Vilhjalmur Stephenson discovered evidence in the Arctic that should not have been possible. Advanced human populations had lived in polar regions for far longer than accepted archaeological theory allowed. His expedition found sophisticated tools, architectural remains, astronomical instruments that suggested Arctic civilizations had achieved remarkable development in environmental conditions that should have been impossible. The discoveries were classified by the Canadian government. Stephenson was prohibited from further Arctic research in certain areas. Stephenson's expedition was mapping uncharted Arctic territories, standard geographical work. But team members discovered structures buried in permafrost, evidence of advanced construction techniques. The buildings were designed to withstand extreme cold using engineering principles that modern Arctic construction still struggles to achieve. We're talking about structures from thousands of years ago that used better cold weather engineering than we have today. The structures contained sophisticated heating systems that operated without visible fuel sources. This suggested ancient Arctic peoples had developed energy generation methods unknown to contemporary technology. The heating systems continued to function, despite being buried in ice for centuries, still generating warmth without any apparent power source. Most remarkable were astronomical instruments found within the structures. These demonstrated precise understanding of celestial mechanics. The devices could calculate planetary positions, predict eclipses, track long-term astronomical cycles with accuracy that required advanced mathematical knowledge. Tools discovered at the site were made from unknown metal alloys, remained sharp and functional despite extreme age and environmental exposure. Analysis revealed metallurgical techniques that produce materials superior to contemporary manufacturing, better than what we can make now. Stephenson documented finding extensive libraries carved into ice, symbolic writing systems describing advanced scientific concepts, mathematics, astronomy, what appeared to be technical manuals for the mysterious heating systems. The most extraordinary discovery was evidence that Arctic civilizations had maintained contact with populations in other regions. Through sophisticated transportation networks, maps carved into ice show detailed knowledge of global geography, including areas that wouldn't be explored by modern expeditions for decades. How did Arctic peoples from thousands of years ago have accurate maps of areas we didn't explore until the 20th century? They shouldn't have, but they did. When Stephenson reported his findings to Canadian authorities, government officials immediately classified all documentation, prohibited further investigation. The Arctic sites were declared restricted areas, access limited to authorized government personnel. Team members were subjected to extensive interviews, required to sign agreements never to discuss their discoveries. Stephenson's subsequent Arctic expeditions were limited to standard geographical mapping, avoiding the areas where advanced civilizations had been discovered. Modern climate change has revealed additional Arctic structures as ice melts, but these discoveries are immediately secured by government agencies, removed from public awareness. International treaties prevent independent investigation of the anomalous Arctic sites. The Arctic anomaly proves that advanced civilizations thrived in polar environments using technologies that enabled survival and development in conditions that modern populations consider barely habitable. Human adaptation and technological development occurred far earlier and more extensively than accepted history acknowledges. We're supposed to believe that ancient peoples were primitive, struggling to survive. But here's evidence of sophisticated engineering in the Arctic, heating systems that still work, astronomical instruments with incredible precision, maps of places they shouldn't have known about. The Pacific Mystery. In 1947, Norwegian explorer Thor Heyerdahl's Kon-Tiki expedition across the Pacific Ocean accidentally discovered something they weren't looking for: evidence of advanced prehistoric maritime civilizations. These had achieved transoceanic navigation and established sophisticated trade networks thousands of years before accepted historical timelines. The discoveries challenged fundamental assumptions about ancient technological capabilities. They were systematically suppressed by academic institutions who didn't want to revise their theories. Heyerdahl's journey was intended to prove that prehistoric South Americans could have reached Polynesia using primitive raft technology. That was the whole point. Show that simple rafts could make the crossing. But the expedition discovered evidence of far more sophisticated ancient maritime capabilities than anyone had imagined. During the Pacific crossing, the team encountered island populations who possessed detailed knowledge of ocean currents, weather patterns, navigation techniques that exceeded contemporary maritime science. These weren't primitive islanders with basic knowledge. They had advanced understanding that modern sailors would respect. The islanders described ancient trade routes connecting distant continents, using methods unknown to modern shipping. Most extraordinary were discoveries of navigational instruments on remote islands. These demonstrated mathematical and astronomical knowledge that shouldn't have existed in prehistoric populations. The devices could calculate positions using stellar navigation with precision, required advanced understanding of spherical trigonometry. Heyerdahl documented finding megalithic structures on uninhabited islands, evidence of advanced construction techniques. The stonework incorporated engineering principles that enabled massive buildings to withstand earthquakes and tsunamis, methods that modern construction has difficulty replicating. The expedition discovered evidence of prehistoric mining operations. These had extracted metals and minerals from islands and transported them across vast ocean distances. The mining showed evidence of techniques for identifying and processing materials. Required sophisticated geological knowledge. Island populations described ancient civilizations that had possessed skyboats capable of flight, fire ships that could travel underwater, technological capabilities that challenged accepted beliefs about prehistoric development limitations. When Heyerdahl attempted to publish his findings about advanced prehistoric maritime civilizations, academic institutions refused to accept evidence that contradicted established theories. Publishers rejected manuscripts that described impossible prehistoric capabilities. The systematic suppression intensified when Heyerdahl tried to organize follow-up expeditions to investigate the advanced Pacific civilizations further. Funding was denied. Permits were refused. Academic colleagues distanced themselves from research that threatened established archaeological paradigms. Can't have ancient peoples with advanced navigation and construction. Doesn't fit the narrative. Modern oceanographic research has confirmed many of Heyerdahl's observations about ancient Pacific trade networks. But investigations into the advanced technological aspects of his discoveries are discouraged through academic pressure and funding restrictions. The Pacific Mystery represents evidence that prehistoric civilizations achieved maritime technological development that exceeded contemporary capabilities. Ancient populations possessed advanced knowledge and engineering skills. These have been systematically written out of accepted history. Why? Because acknowledging sophisticated ancient maritime civilizations challenges too many established theories. Better to suppress the evidence than admit we might be wrong about human development timelines. The Sahara Expedition. In 1933, French archaeologist Henri Lehout led an expedition into the Sahara Desert that discovered evidence of advanced prehistoric civilizations that had flourished in the region when it was still green and fertile. The team found sophisticated urban remains, advanced irrigation systems, rock art depicting impossible technologies that challenged every assumption about African prehistoric development. The discoveries were classified by French colonial authorities. Lehout was prohibited from publishing his most significant findings. Can't have evidence of advanced African civilizations. Doesn't fit colonial narratives about primitive peoples needing European guidance. Lehout's expedition was investigating prehistoric rock art in the Tassili region when team members discovered that the paintings weren't primitive artistic expressions. These were detailed technical diagrams showing advanced mechanical devices and scientific concepts. The rock art depicted sophisticated aircraft with design features that suggested understanding of aerodynamics, propulsion technology, flight capabilities that exceeded contemporary aviation systems that didn't match any known prehistoric development. Most extraordinary were paintings showing figures in what appeared to be protective suits operating complex machinery. Prehistoric Saharan populations had developed technologies requiring specialized safety equipment and operational training. That's not supposed to happen in prehistoric Africa. Archaeological excavation revealed urban remains buried beneath sand dunes. Evidence of advanced city planning, sophisticated water management systems, multi-story buildings constructed with precision engineering, manufacturing facilities for producing unknown technologies. The irrigation systems discovered by Lot's team demonstrated hydraulic engineering that could have maintained agricultural civilization in challenging desert conditions, techniques that modern engineering considers extremely sophisticated. Team members documented finding metallic artifacts that showed evidence of advanced metallurgy, alloys that couldn't be identified using contemporary analysis techniques, manufacturing precision that exceeded modern capabilities. When Lot reported his findings to French colonial authorities, officials immediately classified the most significant discoveries, prohibited publication of evidence that could challenge established beliefs about African technological development. The systematic suppression was motivated by concerns that evidence of advanced prehistoric African civilizations could undermine colonial justifications for European technological superiority. Can't admit that populations colonial authorities considered primitive had achieved sophisticated development. Better to hide the evidence. Modern satellite imagery has revealed extensive archaeological remains beneath Saharan sands in areas corresponding to Lot's discoveries. But international access to these sites is blocked by North African governments. They claim the areas require protection from unauthorized excavation. Recent analysis of Lot's surviving documentation reveals descriptions of discoveries that could revolutionize understanding of prehistoric African technological achievement. But the most significant evidence remains classified in French archives, inaccessible to independent researchers. The Sahara expedition represents proof that advanced civilizations flourished in prehistoric Africa with technological capabilities that have been systematically suppressed. To maintain established narratives about African development, prevent acknowledgement of sophisticated indigenous achievement. The Himalayan encounter. In 1938, German explorer Ernst Schaefer led a Tibet expedition that discovered evidence of advanced ancient technologies hidden in Himalayan monasteries, devices that appeared to manipulate gravity, energy sources that operated according to unknown principles. The expedition's findings were so extraordinary that both Nazi Germany and Allied intelligence agencies fought to control the discoveries, ultimately suppressing all evidence to prevent either side from gaining technological advantages. Schaefer's expedition was officially studying Tibetan wildlife and culture. That was the cover story. But classified documents reveal the true mission was locating advanced technologies that Tibetan legends claimed had been preserved from prehistoric civilizations. The team gained access to hidden chambers and remote monasteries. These contained devices that demonstrated impossible capabilities, objects that levitated without visible support, energy sources that generated power without fuel or mechanical components. Most extraordinary were demonstrations by Tibetan monks of consciousness-controlled technologies. These responded to mental commands rather than physical manipulation. Integration of human awareness with mechanical systems using principles unknown to contemporary science. The devices appeared to operate using principles that violated known physics. Apparent manipulation of gravitational fields, conversion of consciousness into mechanical energy, control of electromagnetic forces through mental concentration rather than electronic systems. Schaefer documented extensive technical diagrams carved into monastery walls. These described the construction and operation of the advanced devices. The information included mathematical formulas and engineering principles that exceeded contemporary scientific understanding. When Nazi authorities learned of the expedition's discoveries, they immediately dispatched additional teams to secure the technologies for military applications. However, Allied intelligence agencies had also learned of the findings, launched competing operations to prevent German access. The situation escalated into covert warfare in the Himalayas. Multiple intelligence agencies fought to control access to the monasteries and their advanced technologies. The conflict resulted in the destruction of many artifacts, the sealing of facilities to prevent further foreign access. Tibetan monks recognized the dangers of their preserved technologies falling into military hands, implemented protocols for hiding or destroying the devices, rather than allowing them to be used for warfare. Post-war investigations by both American and Soviet intelligence agencies attempted to locate the Himalayan technologies, found that most devices had been concealed or destroyed during the wartime conflicts. Modern attempts to study the Himalayan discoveries are blocked by Chinese authorities. They control Tibetan territories and prohibit independent research into the region's ancient technologies. The Himalayan encounter represents evidence that advanced consciousness technology integration existed in prehistoric times, was preserved by Tibetan civilizations until world powers recognized its potential, fought to control discoveries that could revolutionize human understanding of the relationship between awareness and physical reality. But we can't have that knowledge public. Too dangerous. The Australian blackout. In 1931, British archaeologist Grafton Elliot Smith led an expedition into the Australian outback that discovered Aboriginal sites containing evidence of advanced prehistoric knowledge, astronomical calculations, geological surveys, technological capabilities that exceeded contemporary understanding. The discoveries were immediately classified by the Australian government. Smith was prohibited from publishing findings that could challenge established beliefs about indigenous capabilities. Smith's expedition was investigating Aboriginal archaeological sites to document primitive cultural development. That was the assumption. Primitive peoples with basic knowledge. But the team discovered evidence of sophisticated scientific knowledge that contradicted every assumption about indigenous technological limitations. The sites contained rock art that demonstrated advanced understanding of astronomy, accurate star charts, planetary movement calculations, cosmic cycle predictions that required mathematical knowledge exceeding contemporary scientific capabilities. Most extraordinary were geological surveys carved into rock that showed detailed knowledge of underground mineral deposits, water sources, geological formations, sophisticated understanding of earth sciences and mapping techniques. Aboriginal guides demonstrated navigation methods that incorporated complex mathematical calculations, environmental observation techniques, geographical knowledge that enabled precise positioning across vast distances without mechanical instruments. The expedition documented finding evidence of mining operations that had extracted materials using techniques that modern geology considered extremely advanced. Precise identification of ore deposits, sophisticated processing methods. Smith discovered that Aboriginal oral traditions contained detailed technical knowledge about environmental management, sustainable agriculture, ecological balance that demonstrated scientific understanding of complex biological and chemical systems. When Smith attempted to publish findings about advanced Aboriginal knowledge, Australian colonial authorities prohibited release of information that could challenge established beliefs about Indigenous intellectual capabilities, threatened justifications for European technological superiority. The systematic suppression was coordinated between British and Australian governments to prevent evidence of sophisticated Indigenous achievement from undermining colonial policies and cultural narratives about European advancement. Academic institutions were instructed to reject research that credited Aboriginal populations with advanced scientific knowledge. Smith's career was effectively ended when he persisted in attempting to publish his discoveries. Modern research has confirmed many aspects of Smith's findings about Aboriginal scientific knowledge, but investigations into the most advanced discoveries remain restricted by government claims about protecting Indigenous cultural secrets. The Australian blackout represents the systematic suppression of evidence proving that Indigenous populations possess advanced scientific knowledge and technological capabilities. These have been deliberately written out of accepted history to maintain narratives supporting colonial cultural superiority. The Mayan revelation. In 1952, Mexican archaeologist Alberto Ruiz Luiller's expedition at Palenque discovered not only the tomb of Pakal the Great, but evidence that Maya civilization had possessed advanced technologies, precision machinery, astronomical computers, energy systems that operated according to principles unknown to contemporary science. The most extraordinary discoveries were classified by the Mexican government, removed from the archaeological site before international scholars could examine them. Ruiz's excavation of the Temple of the Inscriptions revealed burial chambers containing technological artifacts. These appeared to be sophisticated mechanical devices rather than ceremonial objects. Maya civilization had achieved industrial development that exceeded accepted archaeological timelines. The artifacts included precision machine components made from unknown materials, evidence of manufacturing techniques requiring advanced tools and mathematical knowledge. The mechanical precision exceeded what should have been possible using accepted Maya technological capabilities. Most extraordinary were devices that appeared to be astronomical computers, capable of calculating planetary positions, eclipse cycles, cosmic events with accuracy that required understanding of advanced mathematical concepts and access to precise observational data. The tomb contained energy generation systems that continued to function despite being sealed for over 1,000 years. Maya engineers had developed power sources that operated according to principles unknown to contemporary technology. Still working after a millennium, Ruz documented finding extensive technical diagrams carved into hidden chambers. These described the construction and operation of the advanced devices. The information included mathematical formulas and engineering specifications that exceeded modern scientific understanding. Analysis of the technological artifacts revealed that Maya civilization had achieved metallurgical capabilities that produced materials with properties superior to contemporary manufacturing. Alloys that were lighter, stronger, and more durable than modern metals. When Mexican authorities learned of the expedition's technological discoveries, they immediately classified the findings, removed the most extraordinary artifacts from the site before international archaeological teams could conduct independent analysis. The systematic suppression was motivated by concerns that evidence of advanced Maya technological development could challenge established narratives about indigenous capabilities. Forced revision of accepted archaeological timelines. Academic institutions were pressured to focus on cultural and artistic aspects of Maya civilization, while avoiding research into technological achievements that could prove sophisticated indigenous development. Modern attempts to investigate the advanced aspects of Maya technology are blocked by Mexican authorities. They claim such research could damage fragile archaeological sites and violate indigenous cultural protections. The Mayan revelation represents evidence that Maya civilization achieved technological development that has been systematically suppressed to maintain established archaeological paradigms, prevent acknowledgement of advanced indigenous scientific achievement that could challenge accepted timelines of human development. These expeditions discovered things that shouldn't exist according to our accepted understanding of history. Advanced civilizations in places they weren't supposed to be. Technologies that predate their supposed invention by centuries or millennia. Knowledge that challenges fundamental assumptions about human development. And every single time, the discoveries were suppressed, classified, hidden away from public knowledge. The pattern is consistent across continents and decades. When explorers find evidence that challenges established narratives about primitive peoples and technological progress, that evidence disappears, gets locked in classified archives or destroyed entirely. Why? Because admitting these discoveries would require rewriting history, acknowledging that indigenous populations achieved sophisticated development, that advanced knowledge existed far earlier than accepted timelines allow, that our understanding of human civilization is fundamentally incomplete. What we're really talking about here is the systematic burial of evidence that doesn't fit the story we've been told about human history. And it's not just one government or one institution doing this. It's coordinated. Multiple countries working together to make sure certain discoveries never reach public knowledge. That level of coordination suggests something bigger than just protecting archaeological theories. It suggests there's something about our actual history that powerful interests don't want us to know. The evidence keeps piling up, though. Satellite technology keeps revealing things beneath ice and sand and jungle canopy. Things that match exactly what these suppressed expeditions described decades ago. Geometric patterns, urban layouts, structures that shouldn't exist where they are or when they were built. And every time something new shows up on satellite imagery in one of these restricted zones, access gets even more locked down. More treaties, more protected areas, more reasons why independent researchers can't investigate. You start to wonder what they're really protecting. Is it just embarrassment over being wrong about historical timelines? Or is there something about these ancient civilizations that challenges more fundamental assumptions about human development and capability? Maybe something about where that knowledge came from originally. Because that's the other pattern you notice across all these expeditions. It's not just that these ancient peoples had advanced technology, it's that they seem to have complete knowledge systems, mathematical understanding that took modern civilization centuries to develop, astronomical observations that required instruments they supposedly didn't have, metallurgical techniques that produce materials we still can't fully replicate. That doesn't look like gradual technological development. That looks like knowledge that appeared fully formed from somewhere. And maybe that's what really threatens the establishment narrative. Not just that indigenous populations were more advanced than we thought, but that advanced knowledge existed far earlier than should be possible. That maybe human civilization didn't develop in the neat linear progression we've been taught. Maybe it's been more of a cycle. Advanced knowledge appearing, civilizations rising, then collapsing, then the knowledge being preserved in fragments until the next cycle begins. The explorers who found this evidence were silenced, their discoveries buried, but the truth they uncovered remains, waiting to be rediscovered, waiting for the day when the suppression finally fails and humanity learns what we've really been capable of all along. If you learned something from this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Don't keep these discoveries as a secret to yourself. Until next time, when we find out how.